I would like to get a little bit more specific since we all represent different religious traditions. What are some of the specific teachings, or even general teachings, that you draw upon within your own religious tradition that could help people that are looking for work or looking to find meaning and purpose in their work?
I think one of the ways I've been able to reframe some of the issues that we've been thinking about is the value of education, and education coming in many different forms. So for instance, one of the sayings or oral traditions of Prophet Muhammad is that education is incumbent from the cradle to the grave. So this idea that losing your economic sustenance may actually open the door to another form of education gives a purpose, allows for a way for someone who has a religious perspective to think through, wait, maybe this is an opportunity to engage in a new form of education. I think for religious leaders, religious communities, religious scholars, thinking through what is the form of education that we can engage in even from our pulpit, that allows those that are doing or losing economic opportunities to be retrained.
Every year, I have freshmen that come in to meet with me, and they come, many from their home communities. They think, I have 5 options. I have 5 career options. I could be a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, high finance, or a loser. And what I try to help them to see that your call, that God's call on your life, is not just a call, say, to become a religious professional or to be a preacher, but whatever it is that becomes your lot in life to do, that's God's call on you. And so therefore you do it and you live out your innate dignity through that labor. And so it doesn't matter whether you're a physician or whether you're cleaning up the operating room. Both are contributing to sanitary cultures of healing and deliverance.
Instead of looking for meaning, you're making meaning.
You're making meaning.
In our traditions, both of our traditions, the traditions based on the Bible, the idea of a Sabbath, it says 6 days you should work, and on the 7th you should rest. And everybody concentrates on the rest part. Obviously, work is the norm, but it doesn't say 6 days you should make money. And someone can work without an economic motivation, and that can be very meaningful depending on their circumstance. Somebody who decides to be a candy striper in a hospital, or somebody who decides to volunteer at a nonprofit, or at a church, or at a synagogue, or at a mosque, or at a temple, I mean, that's work. It's just that it's not work that brings home a paycheck, but it's work that fills the soul.
A merely materialistic understanding of the meaning of work, or a merely economistic idea of the meaning of work, really doesn't make it, because work is about any kind of purposeful activity. And when we link the understanding of work with our understanding of God, and so work in all its forms is sacred. It's participation in the inner life of God, in God's self. You know, okay, that's something that in faith, but I think that to the extent that people can grab onto some kind of a concept of a higher transcendent power, it will also enable them, I think, to respond to what labor is all about.
From what I'm hearing around the table, as well as within my own tradition, especially the Zen tradition, life is a process. It's not so much the end. We always say that Zen is really not about enlightenment. Zen is about the process. Everything is about the process. So even the obstacle of unemployment is also part of the process. The process in itself is always evolving and changing. And Buddhist doctrine very much emphasizes that everything is always undergoing change, and the changes will be evolving as it goes, and adapting ourselves to different job circumstances is definitely part of that. How do we actually address the fear of change? Has to do very much with the fact that we cannot see life as a process, and it's always undergoing changes and is unpredictable. Yes.
On April 4th, 1967, in the Riverside Church in New York, Martin Luther King Jr. said that we need a revolution of values in American society, where we have to move from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society, or a love, agape-oriented society. And one of the triple evils that he identified was materialism. And it's tied to this question that we're talking about, dignity, about labor, right? What is the end of our work? And unfortunately, I think what King was putting his finger on was that we have privileged financial profit over human passion and purpose. A lot of what we're talking about in our religious traditions. And since it seems that the end of work is maximizing profits, then we can't talk about labor being tied with dignity, right? We can't have a real robust conversation, right, about automation and the eradication of so many jobs, because that is seen as good. That's seen as noble, because it's maximizing profits. And in the process, I think that we are diminishing human personality. And we have to find some way to inject that and this level of discourse into the conversations.
It's one of the reasons why your students come to you and they say, I want to be one of these things that will make me a lot of money, is to chase away the fear that they will be powerless, that they will be alone, because they understand that the commodification of society makes it possible that you can have people around you and you can be secure and you can get better health care and better neighborhoods and safer neighborhoods and all those things if you get that. And so I don't want to diminish the existential fear of someone who comes and says, I can't make a living, by saying, well, it's more important that you relate to other human beings, because that's part of the fear that they have, is people are going to abandon me if I'm not seen as somebody who can generate some kind of use in society.
Or live up to the
expectations, right.
I think also one of the things within the Muslim tradition is that the pursuit of money is not a negative thing. It is considered part of life, and it's part of what human beings are on earth to do. The sustenance, in the same verse of the Quran that God talks about giving humans dignity, it also says to go forth in the world. So you have this sort of relationship with God that's very, a very deeply sort of spiritual and religious experience, and then you have the work experience day to day, and those are often encapsulated together. Money itself is not the problem, but it's the ethics of engaging and receiving the money, and that part of the social structure around you and our spiritual and religious communities have a role in dignifying the status of the human being. So I think one of the things we can think about in this conversation is, what is the morality, the moral imperative of both those that are working, but those that are providing work as well?